Our products are safe on kids and pets. We've got a topical repellent you can put on an infant or a toddler. It's so mild. That's pretty darn effective. Most of our products will not even harm pollinators. Our stuff is going to repel the small insects easier. The larger insects, the bees and things like that, they're normally not affected by our products.
Hello, and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. It's Rick Nuske here. I am your host, and I'm very excited to be with you today. In fact, I'm always excited to be the host of this wonderful show. If this is new for you, this show, thank you very much for joining us. And I know you're in for a treat because on today's show, I'm excited to welcome the founder of Mosquito Steve, Mr. Steve Moore. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure to have you here. Now, today, during our conversation, Steve, you and I will be discussing family, spirituality, business lessons, and the journey behind your highly successful venture called Mosquito Steve. But before we do any of that, where are you calling in from today?
Where am I calling? In Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. Now, tell me a little bit about life in Dallas, Texas. Has that been where you've been for a long time, or?
I grew up here. I was born here, raised here. I've been here 65 years and still hopefully another 65.
Absolutely.
But,
sure.
It's a great town. It's so weird because we don't have any mountains or, really nice rivers or, we don't have a beach. We don't have any of those things, but somehow we survive and people like to come here and, and I got to tell you, and you probably are familiar with this, but the in the summers it gets just brutal here.
Oh yes.
So we're getting, in fact, in 2 days in May. So we're fixing to break a record. We're going to hit 100 degrees on Wednesday.
Well, there you go.
And that usually doesn't happen until maybe 2 or 3 times in the middle of the summer, but we're hitting it early this year.
Yes, so. Interesting times. Well, yeah. I've seen some of your videos, and we're going to explore some of those. The background on some of the environments that you're in are certainly conducive to the business that you've created. But in all of that, what do you enjoy doing the most when you're not working?
Well, I have a family now, so so I enjoy spending time with my family. So I literally, I'm not kidding. So I was 62 years old and had the longest relationship I'd ever had was about 6 months.
Yep.
And so I spent a lot of years in love with alcohol and drugs, and those were my lovers, and I spent a lot of time with them, about 20 years, and finally sobered up in 1995, and so. But I never thought that I would meet the woman of my dreams. Mm-hmm. I never thought I would have a family. I thought I was too old to do that. But at 62, I went to get a pedicure one day because my feet were a little bit rough. And there was this beautiful Vietnamese woman sitting out in front of the place. And I ended up going to get a pedicure once a week for about 2 months. I bet you did. Until I worked up the courage to ask her out. And so now we're actually engaged to be married, and she had a child. She's got a child, so a child that's never met her father. So I've got a 4-year-old now.
Fantastic.
And a beautiful woman that's fixing to be my wife. And yeah, we're probably going to have more kids.
That's
so
excellent.
It was definitely not. It was not my plan.
Well, it was because you talked about in your write-up talking about being married for life and single forever. Tell us a little bit about that statement.
Well, so my moniker was always, I'm the oldest living, never been married, single heterosexual guy.
Right.
And so that was, back in the day. So my mom died many years ago, about 25 years ago or more, but she used to always, in church, she'd bring little babies up and go, when are you going to make me one of these? And, the pressure was so much. And the thing was, it was not by choice. I didn't even know it until I sobered up that I was dissing all my friends and all my relationships so that I could get high. But that was all I cared about. I wasn't ready to admit it back then, but I just wanted to be high. I just wanted to be drunk. I ended up going to jail a whole bunch of times. I had 3 driving while intoxicated charges. And so all of that happened up until about 1991. I got my 3rd DWI and finally got sober in 1995. It was not easy. I smoked a lot of crack along the way too,
Hmm.
and so thank God. Anyways, this September I'll have 30 years,
That's excellent.
and the only reason that I'm sober today is I spend a ton of time helping new guys to get sober.
That's fantastic. Look, that's a journey. I mean, do you think that it's, through your own experiences, that's the only way that you can be able to help anybody else in the world nowadays? Is that the best way for us to develop in a way?
You know what? I don't know if it's the only way, but I know that for me, it's look. I have two ways to go. If I'm thinking about me, I'm probably miserable and depressed. If I'm
Mm.
thinking about other people, I'm usually okay.
Yep.
So it's best for me to constantly be thinking about others and how I can help meet their needs. And when I do that, I'm okay. If you ever see me sitting around, with my thumb in my mouth pouting, I'm obsessing on me.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, look, I think we're all exposed to that occasionally, but in all of that self-reflection, you've obviously come full circle, and spirituality's become a big part of your life. Tell me about your journey in that regard.
Well, so when I had spent years when I was doing crack and drinking a lot, doing shooting the double bird at God, and so I did that for a long time, as long as I could. And so when I got to sobriety, I had a little trouble getting that relationship with God going because I was really I was very angry at him. My mom died early. I had a sister that got killed. I had, all this stuff that was going on, and so I was really angry at him. And the truth is I was really afraid, is what it was, and I didn't know that at the time, but I was scared of God because I thought, he had been keeping score. And he was fixing to even out the playing field, and I was not going to turn out well if that happened. And so, thank God, I grew. I got from higher power to God, and now Jesus Christ is my Savior and my personal Savior. And I each time that I get a little deeper and I get to know God better, my life gets better. And so that's the thing is I feel like we're either going towards God or we're going away from God all the time. And so I just try to keep going towards God. And so, but I sponsor a lot of guys in recovery, and like I've got one that the guy's got everything going for him. You wouldn't believe it, and yet he just disappeared on me. Just came back today. He's been out for 2 months doing meth, and he's down to about 85 pounds. The guy's he's a little toothpick, and he's on the verge of death.
Mm.
And so I'm hoping that we can get him sober before he ends up dying. But every time, as long as I'm helping others, as long as I'm thinking of others, I'm doing okay. And
Yeah, well, look,
so I try not to think about myself. It's really hard. It's hard to do marketing if you don't want to talk about
oh,
anything.
yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to do a little bit of that, unfortunately, today, Steve. Now, on that, go back a few years
Okay.
now. Tell me a little bit about childhood, because I'd love to know a little bit what life was like early on for you.
Oh my God, I was spoiled. So when I was born, we were actually very poor. In fact, there's this story my mom used to tell us about. There was one cheese sandwich we had for the entire family. So I had two sisters and a mom and dad, and we had one cheese sandwich among us. And Dad didn't know that. He came home and he ate it, and so we all went hungry that night. But I was too young to remember that, but we were very poor, and my dad was determined to get out of that, and so he actually was a great salesman. He went to work for a company that makes small printing presses, and he became their number one salesman for almost 20 years in a row. And it was a national company, so oh my gosh, they were going on trips all the time. He was always winning all this stuff, and he started making some pretty good money. And so we grew up in a upper middle class neighborhood. And in my as a child, I got straight A's in elementary school. I loved family. I loved my mom and dad, and I spent a lot of time with them. My sisters and I fought like siblings do, but other than that, I made straight A's. And then right before junior high, right before seventh grade, I ended up. My sister took me over to her boyfriend's little sister's house, and because she was having a party, and I didn't know anybody. Well, it turns out they were all smoking pot, and I thought that was disgusting. So for some reason, I went to the liquor cabinet, and there was this beautiful bottle of gin. It was a fifth of gin, unopened.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that bottle out in the middle of the floor. I said, "I'll show you guys." And I opened it up and I turned it upside down and chugged it. And that was my first real drink, and
Yeah, wow.
my first blackout,
Uh,
my first throw up from booze. I mean, it was my first of everything. And most people, it had that happen, would have said, "Oh my God, I don't ever want to do that again." But not for me. I mean,
you
I
wanted
couldn't
more of
wait
it.
to do it again.
Yeah.
And so my grades steadily went down as I went through the grades. Instead of being an honor student, I got to where I was missing class all the time because I was going out and getting high. And pretty soon I found out pot wasn't so bad after all. Eventually, I was doing acid. I was doing
A lot.
a lot of cocaine, just the whole thing. I was smoking cigarettes like crazy. I mean, I was doomed I was very destructive, very
So,
self-destructive.
so in all of that, I mean,
And, but I didn't know, and I was suicidal. I was often suicidal.
yeah, what I can take from this now is that you are happy. Would that be fair? I mean, what's life look like for you now? You're content.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm grateful. I'm grateful more than anything. I'm grateful for the people that God's put in my life. I'm grateful for, the business. The business is not where I want it to be, but I'm grateful for it. And we do all right. And I've got some opportunities for some other stuff, but this has been really, really difficult. The business side of it has been very, very difficult. And I don't really have the answers on that. I can tell you what doesn't work, and that's about the best I can do. But I still have. Here's what I have. Everything I do, I want to be the best, and the mosquito stuff is the same. And so I've created my entire line is more effective than the chemicals, more effective than the harsh stuff, the stuff that kills. It's more effective than the misting systems people use, and yet I can't seem to break through that glass ceiling for some reason. And a part of that is so because big chemical is the one that's behind all of the pest control guys. And I've just in the last few years found out that one of the reasons why these guys won't even talk to me is because they're actually getting kickbacks from the chemical companies. And so, it doesn't matter that my products are better, safer, and less expensive. I can't afford to pay these guys, $50,000-$60,000 a year just to buy my products.
No, well, look, at the end of the
So
day,
it's kind of
this is why we do podcasts, because we're definitely going to help you get your message out there. I'm all for this type of product because it has the potential to change the world. Now, you talk a lot about in your write-ups about the business mistakes that you've made. I'm wondering what you've learned from business mistakes specifically. Let's talk about. We know that there's big chemicals in the background. We understand that that's a barrier, but what other actual, I guess, operational, strategic sort of issues have you faced? Problems that you've had to overcome, and what have you learned from them as a small operator?
Well, I think that so we have gone after. I've done a lot of pitching. I've pitched to millionaires all over the country, and a big part of what our problem was is that I needed not just financing. We needed somebody to come in that understood that side of the business, that could come in and help me and guide me and take over that part. I am not a good manager. I am not. This is what I'm learning. What I'm not. I'm not a great manager.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
not a great financial expert. What I do is I'm very good at finding out what the customer wants and creating what the customer wants, and
Fantastic.
that's what I do really well. And but we just haven't been able to break out of it. We actually, so we signed a deal at the end of 2023 with a company called NCH Corp, and they're a multi-billion-dollar company, and they are in 20,000 retailers. And
Wow.
so I thought we were finally getting somewhere. So because our retail side, we don't do that much. We're okay with that, but most of the business we do is commercial, Like if there's a guy out there called Mosquito Busters or something like that, then we sell to those guys.
Right.
And so, and that's where the money is for us. I've never been able to, it's very expensive to get in retail now. 20 years ago, I could call up, I don't know, some grocery store and say, hey, I'm Steve Moore. I want to come meet you. I've got products that I think you'll love and make money on and do well. And I could go meet them and shake hands with the guy. We could sit down and write out stuff and I could get moving. That's not the way things are anymore. Now, there's two middlemen at least every time I go after a retailer. One of them wants as much as $17,000 per product per year, just so they can tell people what to do if they happen to spill it in the store.
Wow, that's crazy.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It is. It is. And so I've got 35 SKUs. So 17,000 times 35, I can't afford that.
No.
And so
there goes your margin.
And you got things like that. Yeah. So, and our margins are, so we're about a 50% margin is about where we sit. And so I move as much as possible. But anyways, it's just been, I don't know. I almost got out of the business. I was really wanting to get out of the business and I got dragged back in. And so I'm back in it. And what happened is when I started in the mosquito business, I actually had a very successful remodeling business. And we were doing $1.5 million to $2 million a year and doing some really, really, really nice homes in the nicest part of Dallas. But these guys came in and they wanted to put $4 million into my very first invention. And that part of the deal is you got to shut down your remodeling business because we want you to focus 100%. And so I shut down the remodeling business. And then about 2 months later, they fired me and diluted me out and stole my invention.
Oh, that's a learning right there.
That's the other thing. Really bad lawyers.
Yeah. Make sure you got your legal stuff in
order. I
order.
don't trust lawyers. In fact, if there's any lawyers on here that are worth their weight in salt, please talk to me because I have not found a lawyer that I can trust.
Yeah, well, the way the state of the world is right now, good luck finding one. I wonder, what was the actual inspiration? What was the inspiration for you to start Mosquito Steve, and where did the name Mosquito Steve actually come from? It seems obvious, but maybe it's not.
Well, it's not probably. But what happened was we were doing remodeling for the guy. Well, I don't know. Are you familiar with? There's a guy named Ross Perot. He actually ran for president at one time.
Yeah.
But he's from Dallas. He started a company called E-Systems or something like that. Anyways, it was a big EDS. It was a huge company. He was a multi-billionaire back before there was a lot of multi-billionaires and very rich. Well, his son lives in Highland Park and is married to this lady that I happen to know. And they had this extra house. And I went over, we were remodeling that house and doing a lot of work on it. And the guy's father-in-law had a misting system. And he said, Steve, you should get in the misting business. He said, I had to get a guy from Houston up here to install my misting system because there's nobody in Dallas doing this. And 2 days later, I was in the misting system business. And what we found out within 2 months of that was that it was incredibly inadequate. The systems were not working like people said they would. They were using products that were, highly questionable. And it was extremely expensive. Like to get a misting system for a normal typical backyard could be $3,500 to $5,000 plus $250 a month to keep it filled.
Wow.
Now I don't know about you, but that's too much. That's too rich.
That's pretty steep. Yeah.
And so we invented the first portable misting system, and that's what we hung our hat on. That's what we got the $4 million investment on. But when they diluted me out, they also changed all my specifications and did not build the machine that they were supposed to build. And they built a machine that actually leaked all over the place and was horrible. And so they ended up I think they put $13 million into that thing before it went under finally. And I haven't been involved with them since 2007 or 8. So it's been a long, long time.
Been a long while.
But anyway, this was I forgot where I was. I'm
No,
sorry.
look,
I forgot where I
because
was.
I was asking you how it all started for you, and let me ask you a
Oh,
different question now. I wonder, do you now have misters, and do you have personal packs? What is the range of products? I wonder if you can share them with us.
yeah, yeah. So we do. What we did was with that mister, with that portable mister, people kept saying that is great, but we're going to the beach or we're going to the lake, and when my kids want to go out and play, what do I put on them? And I was like, oh my goodness. Well, so that's why we created our first topical repellent. And so and that was quite a journey. That was so. And what happens is the way that we got there is I would stand outside and I would count how many mosquitoes land on me, and then I would spray myself down, and then I'd stay out there and I would count for hours. And when I was using like DEET and some of the other products, I would get maybe 45 minutes effects from it, and then it would crash really bad. And so in the places where I test, you might get 40 to 50 mosquitoes every minute landing on you. So if you're putting on a topical repellent that doesn't work, you're going to end up with a lot of bumps. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And so, I've done that literally thousands of times, and I've done it with every one of our products, and I do it with all our competitors' products too. So I can tell you exactly where every product fits and how it fits in there. And so the most important thing that I decided at the very beginning of this, that no matter what, we had to have the very best products. That's it. We had to have the best products. If our products fall below 90%, we tossed them out and we started over. Most of your products that are on the market today would give anything to get to 90%. They're not even close. And so that's what's ridiculous is that. And so the more that I studied and the more that I tested, the more I found out that these chemical companies are actually lying. They're just not being truthful. They're telling the public that this stuff does stuff that it doesn't do. And all of their all of their data relies on laboratory testing.
Not real
Now, here's
life.
the thing, and there's actually a lot of articles out there about this. Laboratory testing does not mimic real life at all when it comes to mosquito or pretty much any pest product. So they can get it to work in a lab, but they can't get it to work in the real world. And that really is the problem. That's why I do all my testing outdoors. Now the Chinese CDC has tested some of our products and came back with flying colors. I mean, we've got our granules are amazing. They're made of corncob bits. They're biodegradable, and you put them in water, and mosquitoes will not lay their eggs there. They won't even get close to it.
They don't like it.
And so, if you want to get out ahead of the season, you put that stuff out there, put the granules out, and you won't have mosquitoes and you won't have some of those pest insects because this stuff it'll keep them from breeding in your yard.
Well, I tell you what, Steve, every time you start talking about this, you light up. You're obviously very, very invested in it. You're passionate about it, but I actually saw one of your videos. I need to ask you this because I couldn't do it. What's it like to be bitten by hundreds and hundreds of mosquitoes? on purpose, for that matter.
Well, I tell you what. So there was the worst night of all. We were back in 2007. There was a drought here in North Texas, and we couldn't find enough mosquitoes for me to test. And I was still working with those investors, and so we went down to Puerto Rico and down to the jungles of South Mexico.
Wow.
And where there should have been millions of mosquitoes, and we couldn't find any.
Oh.
So we ended up coming back to Dallas, and there was a humongous mansion getting remodeled. And these people let us test in their backyards because they had moved out of the house while it was getting remodeled. And they had waterfalls and all this stuff. So we unplugged all that, and the water went stagnant, and we started breeding mosquitoes in this backyard. So that was at that point, I was ending up literally with the mosquitoes. There were so many, they were landing on me so fast, I couldn't count them. It was about 100 a minute, but I ended up with more than 2,000 mosquito bites in one night.
Wow.
And so that was, and I got pretty sick after that. I got pretty sick. In fact, I think I've got West Nile virus. I've got all the symptoms. I've had them multiple times. It's so weird to get doctors. They don't like talking about stuff like that, and they don't like diagnosing mosquito-borne diseases for some reason.
Mm.
So, which is okay. I don't like doctors anyways. I like doctors about as much as I like lawyers.
Oh, me too. Look, hey, tell me, what are some of the what are some of the known impacts from being bitten by mosquitoes? Because clearly your product is designed to deal with those.
Well, so I've got a little girl, and she gets I tell you what, she gets a bite, and it gets really really swollen and
Mm.
big and bright red. And so I know a lot of people that are allergic to them. I'm very fortunate. I think one of the reasons why it was easy for me to get into this business is because, I think that God put this together, and honestly, I think that that I'm pretty stout, and it's pretty difficult. I just don't get sick very much. And so there's one thing that's after all this, like I haven't really had a lot of the symptoms since about 2008 from West Nile virus. However, I've got this one thing, and I've been to 12 doctors, including one of the finest hospitals in Dallas, and I get this rash on my spine, and it slowly but surely wraps all the way around my midsection, and it swells up, and it puts out heat, and it gets itchy, and I get and a lot of pain, and it's crazy, and no doctor's been able to figure out what
I
it
tell you
is.
what, you've taken one for
And
the
I
team, haven't
have to
you?
believe. Yeah. It used to recur to about once a month, and now it's down to about once every 6 months. And so I can deal with it, but I mean, it's bad enough that, like, usually the first 2 days I can't get out of bed.
Mm.
And so, but you know what?
It is. It
I don't know
is.
what else to do. I'm not
Yeah.
going to any more doctors. I know that. I spent way too much money. The
Uh,
last doctor I went to was some 20-something-year-old. I don't know how she even became a doctor, but she didn't even talk to me. She didn't look at the problem. She simply lectured me for 20 minutes and then charged me $600 for that.
oh goodness
So I was
me.
like,
Well, look,
okay, we're done here.
there's got to be a better way. That's for sure and certain. But driving back to
Yeah.
the overall outcomes for your product. This is clearly safe for pets and children.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the EPA in America, the way that the guidelines are, if you can register with the EPA, but it costs a lot of money and it takes a lot of time. The EPA puts out a list called the 25B list, and that 25B list contains all the ingredients that they think are so safe that you don't have to register a product. So what we have done is what one entomologist told me, we've created the Holy Grail, basically. Because he said, what we found a product that actually works using those, and everybody had been trying to do it. There's a lot of companies, all the big chemical companies have tried to do what we're doing, and they just haven't been able to do it. And but our products are safe on kids and pets. We've got a topical repellent you can put on an infant or a toddler. It's so mild, and yet it's more effective than like Deep Woods Off. And so, I mean, that's pretty darn effective. Most of our products will not even harm pollinators. So you're bigger. By the way, so mosquitoes are pollinators. Most people don't realize that, but our stuff is going to repel for the most part, and it's going to repel the small insects easier. The larger insects, the bees and things like that, they're normally not affected by our products. We often treat a yard and have misting in the yard, and then I'll be out there talking to a customer, and we'll be watching the bees go from flower to flower, and so there's no mosquitoes, but the bees are still there, and so it really does work that way. That's why I like having God as a business partner, because he knows what we need more than I do.
Yeah.
And so whenever I listen to him, we do well.
Yeah, well, look, it all comes back to what we were talking about earlier about your faith. So, thank you very much for sharing all of the things you have. You've obviously touched on a bit of your personal life, which has been a journey in and of itself, then obviously through to the, I guess, the start of the business and how it all came about, all the testing that you've done, and now we've just touched on how safe it is for kids and pets. I really do appreciate it. But what are some of the, I guess, the common misconceptions about mosquito control, and how does your business address all of those things?
Well, most people, like consumers, that most of the people in the houses around here, they expect somebody to come out and spray their yard once before the mosquito season, and then never have to come back. And that's just not realistic. In fact, there's nothing out there that's going to get you more than you might get 3 weeks, and possibly even close to a month. But that is the very edge of it. You're not. It's not likely you're going to get that. And that also supposes that you're not going to have rain that's going to wash away all the work that you have done.
Ah,
So what the deal is that there are companies out there, like it's a huge business here. I bet it is where you are too, that there's guys that they have backpacks and they go out and they spray people's yards for mosquitoes.
oh yeah.
Y'all call them, what do y'all call them? You call them mozzies, right? Mozzies?
Yeah, that's right. They're the same.
Yeah. Okay. So they but anyway, so they get out there, backpack spray, and that'll keep the mosquitoes away for a couple of weeks. We've actually got a system where you can do it yourself if you want, for a lot less money, and actually probably more effective than even the professionals will do. And so, like, we've got the granules. You put those granules out, you put them all anywhere where they could breed, and they won't breed there. Then you want to spray everything down with our natural repellent. And by the way, these smell good. These are not, like, garlic is not one of our ingredients. By the way, don't use garlic. It's a natural product, but it lasts, at the very most, it'll give you about a half a day is about all you're going to get out of that. And it smells like butt. So you really don't want that.
No.
And so, but anyways, so we've got that. So you do the yard spray with a hose, just spray everything down with our hose end sprayer. And then after that, we've got incense and candles. And these things are amazing. Like, our incense, actually, if somebody says, I want one product, what do I get? I tell them, go get the incense. So if you want to sit outside and have a glass of wine, you put 2 sticks of our incense out there, one upwind, one downwind, light them up. You got 3 hours with no mosquitoes or flies. It smells heavenly, and it really, really works. It's amazing how well it works. And so you don't have to spend a bunch of money to get good mosquito control. We also have the other thing that I really haven't been able to find the niche for this product yet, and I don't understand why. But there used to be a product called Mosquito Magnet. It's actually owned by an Australian company now, but they actually sold $130 million worth of those mosquito magnets 3 years in a row. And that's a lot of money. They went from 25,000 a year in sales to 130 million, and
amazing.
Just blew it out of the park. You went to Home Depot back then, they would have these things stacked to the ceiling because the demand was so high. The problem is the thing never really worked.
Mm-hmm.
And B, it was extremely difficult to use. And so what happened is after, it was like they just shut the door. All of a sudden, Home Depot quit carrying them. They took all the returns, and everybody kicked Mosquito Magnet out the door because it just wasn't doing what they said it was going to do. And so, I would caution people to be careful. Traps don't generally work, and that's what a mosquito magnet is. The premise behind the trap is that it will attract the mosquito because it'll be fooled to thinking that's a human. It'll get close enough, and then it sucks it into a little net, and there you go. You got rid of a mosquito. Well, it's just not realistic. And even the EPA finally has said on its website that traps just don't work. People don't spend your money on it. Yet, I will tell you, the number one thing that people spend money on in America is traps. They're traps, and they've got these other ones. There's one that's called, well, I don't know if can I say the name of it? There's one called Spartan. I'll tell you, people buy them all the time. It's just a tube like this. And the premise behind it is the mosquito is going to be attracted to, they've got yeast down inside this tube. So the mosquito is going to fly to it. It's going to crawl down through this hole, go down to the bottom, eat some yeast, and then fly out and explode. Okay. Now, just saying that, doesn't that sound a little fishy? Okay. Here's what's even worse. These little holes that they're saying these mosquitoes climb in, mosquitoes don't crawl through holes. They don't. They can't. Their wings don't fold. They don't seem to understand. That is not, and so it's impossible. They might get some insects that fly in there and fly out, but it ain't mosquitoes. I can promise you that.
Yeah, well, look, there's certainly a lot of science.
I'd say be careful. And anytime, if somebody wants to send me an email and ask me about a product or something like that, I'd be happy to take it. I love getting emails from people. We've got most of the people that are big followers of ours and love us. They email me. They know I'll respond if they email. I get so many calls in a day, but if anybody has any question about mosquitoes or any of the other insects, Steve at mosquitosteve.com is how to get a hold of me.
Well, that's fantastic that you've mentioned that, given that we're getting near the pointy end of the call so quickly. We've covered so much ground. I just wonder, Steve, given the journey that you've had, when you talked briefly a moment ago about, lots of your loyal followers and customers, commercial customers, retail, maybe not as much, but how does it make you feel when you see people using your products and experiencing the benefits of using Mosquito Steve?
Well, it's nowadays I'm just grateful. I will tell you, when I started this and we were advertising on a local radio station, and it was a sports radio station, has a huge following, and I became somewhat of a little minor celebrity in Dallas. And I loved it. I got to tell you, my ego ate it up. And yeah, I like being in the spotlight and stuff like that. But the truth is none of that matters if we're not actually doing our job. And the thing that I love the most is getting the notes, the calls from the moms, because we're able to protect the kids. In fact, I've got a lady that's got a misting system. She lives in this huge house. It's on 2 acres, and they've got this huge fence in the back with this misting system going across. And they put my stuff in there. And she said, well, I don't buy mosquito repellent anymore. I was like going, well, I'm not doing something right there. She says, no, you don't understand. What I do is I turn my misting system on that's got your product in it, and I tell my kids to go play in it.
That's
now how many people would tell their kids go play in the pesticide?
No. Well, look, Steve, it's been an absolute journey and an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Now, if anybody else is watching this, they want to learn more about Mosquito Steve, you want to contact Steve, as mentioned, Steve's email will be provided alongside of mosquitosteve.com. That's fairly easy to remember. It's going to be a link below this post. No matter where you see the call, you're going to be able to just one click through to Steve's website and away you go. But with all that being said, Steve, this has been a fantastic insight into Mosquito Steve. Thanks very much for joining me on the show today.
Well, thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.